As it stands, the death rate is holding steady at 100%. That means that there will always be bodies to prepare for funeral processions in all variety of conditions. Funeral homes offer package deals, most of which involve some form of embalming. While embalming offers long-term preservation, how often is it really necessary? What effects does it have on the earth post-burial? And how is it hurting morticians? Embalming is not a particularly new process, however, it has gotten more and more widespread in the West during the last 2 centuries. The Civil War brought with it the widespread use of embalming because so many soldiers were dying so far from home. It would not be uncommon for these bodies to be sent back to the family. However, decomposition, bloat, and extreme discoloration would have already set in before arrival. Access to cold transportation environments was not an option, as refrigeration had not yet been invented. To fill this demand, early morticians would follow behind the battlefront, pumping chemicals into deceased bodies to ship back to loved ones. Despite the amount of these people operating during the Civil War, care of the deceased was handled primarily in the home, that is, until the Spanish influenza outbreak of 1918. Those working in the funeral industry convinced the public that caring for the body at home was putting the family at risk of infection. This campaign worked, and more people turned to paid professionals for funeral service. Gradually, embalming became more and more common practice until it has become expected to embalm for a viewing. One of the main problems with embalming, regardless of circumstance, is the price. The average cost of embalming falls between $500 to $700, in addition to the cost of the casket, viewing, food, flowers, and other bodily preparation costs. This can be a huge financial drain on the family, possibly sending them into debts for years. The second issue is the effect it has on the environment. Chemicals used in embalming, such as formaldehyde and methanol, leach out into the surrounding ground as the body starts to break down. The soil can only take so much of the preservative before it becomes toxic to plants and animals. These chemicals, like formaldehyde and methanol, are the main ingredients in embalming and do not break down easily. This cocktail of chemicals kills off the good bacteria, small insects, and plants in the soil, leaving it barren and bad for life. While the ground can be reconditioned, and more than a few cemeteries have done this for various reasons, it's expensive and does not take into account the widespread impact. With time, the embalming cocktail seeps down into the water table. Contamination in the water table means that the embalming chemicals end up in natural reservoirs, city water sources, and used for people, animal, and plants. Most concerning of all is the impact the embalming has on the health of morticians. Consistent exposure to these chemicals has been linked to respiratory issues. A study run from 2012 to 2018 found that consistent and regular exposure to embalming fluids had a correlation to irritant-caused asthma. As well, formaldehyde has also been linked to nasal cancer in rodents. In the majority of cases, embalming is unnecessary. But what are your other options? Not all states permit a completely natural burial, so perimeter research is a good idea, but generally, embalming is not required for burial. Keeping the body clean and cool suffices for a general funeral, even with a viewing. When planning a funeral, simple can be the best for the environment, for the mortician, for your family, and for your deceased loved one.